Welcome everyone to a countdown that is frankly more stressful than watching a rocket launch in a Michael Bay film. We're talking about 10 countries on the razor's edge, teetering on the brink of potential collapse by 2025. Now, before anyone accuses us of fear-mongering, let's be clear. Predicting a country's downfall is about as precise as throwing a dart at a map of the world while blindfolded, riding a unicycle on a ship in a storm. However, there are some worrying signs: economic tremors, political fault lines, and humanitarian crises that suggest these nations are facing an uphill battle. And by uphill, I mean they're practically hanging off the edge of a cliff with a very frayed rope and a questionable safety harness. So, buckle up as we delve into the complex web of challenges threatening these countries. The United Kingdom, a land of tea, crumpets, and, well, let's just say things haven't been quite so jolly across the pond lately. You see, ever since the UK decided to stage a dramatic exit from the European Union, like a guest who announces they're leaving a party by setting off fireworks indoors, they've been grappling with some, shall we say, challenges. First up, the economy. Remember all those promises of a booming post-Brexit Britain? Yeah, about that. Turns out, navigating the complex world of international trade without the backing of the EU is a bit trickier than some politicians would have you believe. Supply chains are tangled, businesses are feeling the pinch, and ordinary Brits are facing empty shelves and rising prices. It's enough to make you wish you'd stockpiled beans and rice like it was the apocalypse. And then there's the political landscape, which can best be described as a circus act where all the clowns are running for prime minister. The revolving door at 10 Downing Street has spun so fast it's practically created its own weather system. This constant instability isn't exactly inspiring confidence in the government's ability to steer the ship, or rather, the leaky, slightly singed post-Brexit party barge. Add to that a healthy dose of social division, because apparently nothing brings people together like arguing over whether a sausage should be allowed to travel freely across borders. And you've got yourself a recipe for, well, not collapse necessarily, but definitely a good old-fashioned national identity crisis. Nestled on the Mediterranean coast, Lebanon was once considered the Paris of the Middle East. Today? Well, let's just say the only thing Parisian about it is probably the price of a croissant, if you can even find one. Lebanon finds itself in the throes of an economic meltdown so severe, it makes the 2008 financial crisis look like a casual dip in the stock market. We're talking hyperinflation so rampant that the Lebanese lira makes monopoly money look like a stable investment. Basic necessities like food, medicine, and electricity have become luxuries few can afford. Imagine trying to explain to your kids that, no, you can't afford to turn on the lights tonight because the national currency has the purchasing power of a soggy napkin. The devastating 2020 Beirut explosion, which ripped through the city's port and shattered countless lives, only exacerbated the existing economic woes. It was a gut punch to a nation already on its knees, exposing the deep-seated corruption and government incompetence that had festered for years. Now, the Lebanese people, known for their resilience and entrepreneurial spirit, find themselves trapped in a seemingly endless cycle of hardship. They deserve better. They deserve a functioning government, a stable economy, and a future where hope isn't a luxury reserved for the privileged few. Venezuela, a land blessed with the world's largest proven oil reserves, should, by all accounts, be an economic powerhouse. Instead, it's a cautionary tale of how mismanagement, corruption, and political turmoil can turn a nation of plenty into a land of scarcity. Imagine this. You have a winning lottery ticket, but instead of cashing it in for a life of luxury, you somehow manage to burn it to ashes while simultaneously setting your house on fire. That's a pretty apt metaphor for what's happened in Venezuela. Hyperinflation has become so extreme that it would make even Weimar Germany blush. We're talking about the kind of economic freefall where you need a wheelbarrow full of cash just to buy a loaf of bread. And good luck finding that loaf of bread because food shortages are so severe that people are resorting to eating their pets. Yes, you heard that right. The political landscape is just as bleak. The Maduro regime has tightened its grip on power, silencing dissent and cracking down on any opposition. Basic human rights are routinely violated, and the once vibrant Venezuelan spirit is being crushed under the weight of authoritarianism. Chapter 4. Haiti, a history marred by disaster. Haiti, the first independent nation in the Caribbean and the first Black-led republic in the world, should be a beacon of hope and progress. Instead, it's a country trapped in a seemingly endless cycle of poverty, political instability, and natural disasters. It's as if fate itself has decided to make Haiti its own personal punching bag. Earthquakes, hurricanes, tropical storms, you name it, Haiti has endured it, and then some. The 2010 earthquake, which leveled much of the capital city of Port-au-Prince, was a stark reminder of the country's vulnerability to natural disasters. But nature isn't the only force wreaking havoc on Haiti. Decades of political corruption, gang violence, and economic mismanagement have left the country reeling. Basic services like healthcare and education are stretched thin, and the infrastructure is crumbling faster than a gingerbread house in a hurricane. The assassination of President Jovenel Moïse in 2021 plunged the country further into chaos. The assassination was a stark reminder of the fragility of Haiti's institutions and the deep-seated political divisions that continue to plague the nation. Chapter 5. Syria, a land scarred by war. Syria, once a cradle of civilization, a land of ancient history and vibrant culture, now stands as a stark reminder of the human cost of war. For over a decade, the Syrian people have endured a brutal civil war that has torn their country apart, leaving behind a trail of unimaginable suffering and destruction. Imagine a reality where your once peaceful neighborhood is reduced to rubble, where the streets you walked as a child are now battlegrounds, and where the constant threat of violence hangs over every aspect of your life. This is the grim reality for millions of Syrians. The conflict, fueled by a complex web of internal divisions and external interference, has created one of the worst humanitarian crises of our time. Millions have been displaced from their homes, forced to flee to neighboring countries or live in makeshift camps, often lacking access to basic necessities like food, water, and medical care. The Syrian war is a stark reminder of the devastating consequences of conflict and the urgent need for peace and stability. The international community must work together to find a lasting solution to this crisis and provide support to the Syrian people as they rebuild their shattered lives. Chapter 6. Yemen, a forgotten crisis. Yemen, often referred to as the Arabia Felix in ancient times, meaning Happy Arabia, now finds itself mired in one of the world's worst humanitarian crises, often overshadowed by other conflicts and forgotten by the international community. It's a tragedy unfolding in slow motion, a humanitarian catastrophe of epic proportions. Imagine a land where children are starving to death, where hospitals are bombed, and where access to clean water and basic sanitation is a luxury few can afford. This is the heartbreaking reality in Yemen today. The conflict, a complex web of internal power struggles exacerbated by regional rivalries, has plunged the country into chaos and created a breeding ground for extremism and instability. The fighting has decimated Yemen's infrastructure, crippled its economy, and left millions on the brink of famine. The world cannot continue to turn a blind eye to the suffering in Yemen. We must demand an end to the violence, hold those responsible for human rights abuses accountable, and provide urgent humanitarian assistance to the Yemeni people who so desperately need it. Afghanistan, a landlocked nation in South-Central Asia, has known little but conflict and turmoil for decades. It's a country where the echoes of war seem to reverberate through the mountains, a place where hope often feels like a distant memory. The Taliban's return to power in 2021, after 2 decades of US-led intervention, sent shockwaves through the country and the world. The swiftness of the takeover left many reeling, particularly women and girls who fear a return to the oppressive rule of the past. The economy, already fragile, is now on the verge of collapse. Sanctions, frozen assets, and a lack of international aid have crippled the country's financial system. Millions are struggling to put food on the table, and the humanitarian situation is dire. the international community faces a difficult choice: engage with the Taliban in an attempt to avert a humanitarian catastrophe, or isolate the regime and risk exacerbating the suffering of the Afghan people. Chapter 8. Sudan, a revolution. Interrupted. Sudan, a country with a rich history and a vibrant culture, has long been plagued by political instability and conflict. It's a nation yearning for peace and democracy, but seemingly trapped in a cycle of violence and authoritarian rule. The 2019 revolution, which toppled longtime dictator Omar al-Bashir, offered a glimmer of hope, a chance for a fresh start. Millions took to the streets, demanding freedom, justice, and an end to corruption. It was a moment of euphoria, a testament to the power of the human spirit to rise up against oppression. But the transition to democracy has been anything but smooth. A military coup in 2021 derailed the fragile progress made, plunging the country back into uncertainty. Protests have been met with brutal crackdowns, and the human rights situation is deteriorating rapidly. The international community must stand with the Sudanese people in their quest for peace and democracy. Sanctions against the military leaders, support for civil society organizations, and pressure for a return to civilian rule are crucial steps in the right direction. Chapter 9. Zimbabwe. From breadbasket to basket case. Zimbabwe, once known as the breadbasket of Africa, now finds itself grappling with a multitude of challenges that threaten to push it over the edge. It's a story of economic mismanagement, political repression, and a nation struggling to break free from the shackles of its past. Hyperinflation has become a recurring nightmare for Zimbabweans. Remember those images of people carrying wheelbarrows full of cash just to buy basic necessities? That was Zimbabwe in the late 2000s. While the situation has improved somewhat, the economy remains fragile, and the scars of hyperinflation run deep. Corruption is rampant, eroding trust in government and hindering economic growth. The ruling ZANU-PF party, in power since independence in 1980, has been accused of rigging elections, silencing dissent, and enriching its own members at the expense of the people. Despite the challenges, the Zimbabwean people remain resilient. They deserve a government that prioritizes their needs, an economy that works for everyone, and a future filled with hope and opportunity. Chapter 10. Myanmar. The fragile dream of democracy. Myanmar, also known as Burma, is a country of breathtaking beauty, rich culture, and a long history of struggle for freedom and democracy. It's a nation where the fight for human rights and the yearning for a better future are intertwined. The military coup in February 2021, which ousted Aung San Suu Kyi's democratically elected government, dealt a devastating blow to Myanmar's fragile democracy. The junta's brutal crackdown on dissent, with its arbitrary arrests, torture, and killings, has plunged the country into chaos. The economy, already struggling, has been crippled by the coup. Sanctions, investor flight, and political instability have created a perfect storm, pushing millions into poverty. The humanitarian situation is dire, with shortages of food, medicine, and other essential goods. The international community must stand in solidarity with the people of Myanmar. Targeted sanctions against the military leaders, support for civil society organizations, and pressure for a return to democracy are essential steps to help Myanmar get back on the path to peace and freedom. A call to action: our world in the balance. So, there you have it. 10 nations staring down the barrel of some truly daunting circumstances. And look, I know what you're thinking. John, this is all very doom and gloom. You're giving me anxiety dreams about global domino effects and me trying to barter my way into a bunker with a year's supply of canned peaches. But here's the thing. While these countries face significant challenges that could lead to their collapse by 2025, it's not a foregone conclusion. History is full of examples of nations pulling back from the brink, of people uniting to overcome seemingly insurmountable odds. The point of this video isn't to induce panic or stock up on iodine tablets. It's to shine a light on these critical situations, to encourage awareness, and hopefully to spark some action. Stay informed, engage in constructive dialogue, and let's hope for a better future for these nations, and indeed, for our entire world. Oh, and don't forget to like, share, and subscribe for more insightful content. And by insightful, I mean mildly depressing yet strangely compelling analyses of the world's problems.